Overlooking Greenfield, King City, and Soledad is the Santa Lucia Range, stretching out all the way to Big Sur and passing through the Los Padres National Forest. This mountain range has plenty to see and plenty you don't want to see. It is speculated that Chumash legends spoke of shadow people that watch you from above. The Spanish called them los vigilantes oscuros. What are these entities? Join me as I tell you a little bit about the Dark Watchers. Picture this. You're camping in the Los Padres National Forest. You spend the day having fun with friends. You all decide to go out on a hike. The hike goes on longer than expected. It's starting to get dark. You're a little tired, so you fall behind. You tell your friends it's okay, you'll catch up. The more time passes, the farther away they get, until you start to feel alone. But you're not alone. That feeling starts to slowly fade until it's replaced by an uneasy feeling of somebody watching you. You keep walking, but the sensation doesn't go away. It gets worse. You start to feel dizzy. Terror fills your blood. You get to an opening in the trail. The trees start to clear away. Then you see it. A 10-foot tall figure staring at you from atop the mountains. You freeze. You stare at it. It stares back. You reach for your camera. You look down for 1 second. Just then it vanishes. You've just seen a Dark Watcher. Said to be a group of entities that stalk travelers through the mountains. The Dark Watchers only have one purpose: to watch. You might feel safe knowing that they are in the mountaintops, but sometimes they like to explore. People have woken up in tents only to see a shadow watching over them while they slept. Others have heard and seen dark figures outside their tents, their footsteps crisp and clear. The story I'm about to tell all of you is from a camp leader in the forest, and it is terrifying. Enjoy. We got to the last 2 days that I'm at that camp before the season is over. I took the last group out to the campsite, nothing special. The rest of the night went without incident until I woke up around 4 a.m. to go to the bathroom. I went a little ways down a path where I know there would be no scouts and no shelters would have been built so I wouldn't accidentally piss all over anybody. I went about doing my business when suddenly I felt like my heart was just sinking farther and farther into my body. It felt like every single tree in the forest was watching me, judging. What were just trees during the whole month suddenly felt like a pair of eyes staring down at me. I had been out there long enough to know that this wasn't what it normally felt like. I finished up and started taking the trail back, only to notice that some of the trees near the clearing looked odd. Normally there was some small barren trees that were just branches attached to a trunk all over the clearing. I was looking at them when I noticed that I couldn't see past them in the moonlight. It's as if there were shadows of leaves on the trees blocking my vision, making it impossible to see past the trees. I know for a fact that all the leaves had fallen off the trees in the area. I got closer to one of the trees because it was near where I had my shelter set up. A massive shadow suddenly broke out from behind the tree and took a few steps before disappearing. The afterimage of a man in the middle of a running motion was burned into my mind when suddenly the other trees started to behave similarly. It felt like every tree was hiding something behind it. I started to panic. I crawled into my shelter and tossed my sleeping bag over my head and pretended that I didn't feel like the forest was watching me. The feeling kept getting worse and worse. Then I started to hear footsteps, not normal footsteps with a rhythm or pacing. It was like someone was trying to step in a way that made noise but wasn't overly obvious. There was a step every 5 seconds, followed by silence. The footsteps kept getting closer. They stopped just a few yards shy of my tent. The footsteps stop and start multiple times after that. They sound like they are circling my tent. Finally, my adrenaline takes over and I shine my flashlight out to see what was out there. There was nothing. I stay up for 5 minutes before I hesitantly lay back down. The footsteps start again, louder this time. I stayed up for another hour before it went away and I fell back asleep. That next morning, I asked around to see if it was any of the scouts who were playing a prank on me. I asked them who was up at 4 a.m. Not many of them raised their hands. Then I asked if anybody was outside of their tents at that time. No hands went up. The kids who were up at that time said they were too afraid of moving. They felt like someone was watching them. Those kids told me they had also heard the footsteps, and they had also not seen anything when they looked outside. What exactly are these entities? That's a question that many people have tried to answer. People of science have come up with theories including air vibrations, light refractions, and shadows. Others have come to more interesting conclusions. One theory suggests that the Dark Watchers are the same entities you see during sleep paralysis, sometimes referred to as the Hat Man This figure is often seen by those unfortunate enough to open their eyes during a bout of sleep paralysis. Those that see the Hat Man state that he starts to slowly fade away the more awake you get. Which begs the question, if the Dark Watchers are in fact the same entities as the Hat Man, does that mean they watch us while we sleep every night and are only visible during sleep paralysis, which is when the body is half asleep? Another theory says that they are the Chumash Nunasis. The Nunasis are creatures of the underworld. When they come up to our world, they spread negative energy all over. However, the problem with this theory is that the Nunasis are not as dark as a shadow. Instead, they are shape-shifting creatures. However, there is a possibility that one of these creatures has made a home in the Santa Lucia Mountains and taken the shape of what we see as a Dark Watcher. This would put the Dark Watchers in the same category as Skinwalkers, which are also Nunasis in the Chumash legends. Whatever they are here, they watch, they are watching. There's no escaping their view. They know what happened, they know what is happening. They do not intervene, they stay out of our way. They are simply the Dark Watchers.